Mayor Breen was born and raised in St. John's, where he resides with his wife, Anne. He has two daughters, Erica and Katie, and a granddaughter, Kyla. Rotarians, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our speaker today, Mayor Breen.
Well, thanks very much and good afternoon. Sorry I'm a month late getting here. But I would like, it's my third speech to Rotary since being elected in 2017, and I look forward to each one of them. It's always great coming here. There's such a great group of people and a lot of camaraderie that happens at these events. Excuse me, I would like to acknowledge the members of council that are here. Councillor Jamie Corab, Councillor Debbie Hanlon, Deputy Mayor Sheila O'Leary, who's here as well. And of course, it was previously indicated, he's worshipped the Mere Paradise, Dan Bobbitt, good friend of mine and somebody who we do a lot of work together in the region. And of course, former councillors, Councillor Kevin Breen, who was up earlier, was a former member of council. Dad, thanks for coming. He gets tangly when I say that. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't begin today by talking about what I did with my January. They called it Snowmageddon, but you know, I don't know where the name Snowmageddon came from. I preferred name. If you recall, that storm happened on a Friday, the day after John Crosby was funeral, and the name was put on a Tequila Sheila's brush, which I thought was a far better name than Snowmageddon. But I describe it as one of the greatest operational challenges the city of St. John's has probably ever faced. The storm that hit us on January 17th was unprecedented, certainly in our recent history. The snowfall, estimated at 78 to 79 centimeters at the airport, broke the previous record of snowfall in one day, which was 68.4 centimeters in April of 1999. The record-breaking storm wasn't at all a normal event. The event was basically a direct hit from what is known as a weather bomb. It is extraordinary as well. From December 24th to January 20th, St. John saw over 210 centimeters of snow, the most it has seen in 20 years. Today we have had approximately 375 centimeters of snow, surpassing our average of 345 centimeters. The week before the big storm, our team had a good sense of what was coming and preparations were in overdrive. But the complete picture was not fully realized until Friday morning at 11 a.m. when we declared a state of emergency. Little did we know that that state of emergency would last for 8 days. States of emergency are not called very often, especially in St. John's. In fact, it's been more than 34 years since we had to do so, and it's not a decision that we took lightly. By Friday morning, St. John's and most of the northeast Avalon was essentially closed for business. While some of our regional partners were able to lift their states of emergency faster than we were, the truth is, as you traveled around the metro area today, we are still and will continue to be in recovery mode, likely for the remainder of the winter. Our state of emergency fully lifted on Saturday, January 25th, although exceptions were made throughout the week to allow essentially life-sustaining operations to continue. Opening pharmacies, doctors' offices, supermarkets for limited time periods, to permitting taxis and home fuel oil trucks, the port and the airport to open ahead of the official release of the full state of emergency. Now, we've taken some criticism for the way that we allowed certain exceptions, but for the most part, feedback has been quite positive. Most residents and business owners understood the predicament we found ourselves in. How do we allow travel on partially cleared streets with essentially no room for pedestrian traffic, while still making room for our public works crews to safely and efficiently do their work? We heard from many people concerned about the economic impact, the financial losses of being shut down for a long period of time, and we felt the pressure of the decisions we made. In fact, we still do feel that pressure. But I am pleased to note that many businesses took care of their employees to the greatest extent possible, and it's my wish that the measures we as a municipality have taken to offer some relief on tax payments, for example, help businesses recover as quickly as possible from the period of downtime. You know, there was a lot of great things happening in the city. You saw our city at that time at its worst of times, and you saw it at our best of times in the space of 8 days. One of my favorite stories from it was the morning that we opened the grocery stores, and city manager Kevin Breen was there. We were talking about it. One of the big concerns we had was that how are we going to get people who needed transportation to the grocery store? How do we get seniors and people that are disabled? How do we get them there? So, just by chance, I got a call at about 6:30 that morning from Peter Gulliver, who said, we're going to put our taxis on the road for free. And we're going to get as many drivers as we can to go take people to the grocery stores. I said, Peter, that's great. That's a big load off our plate. And he then went down and called the other taxi companies, and they all did it, which led to probably my favorite line, which summarizes the whole community during the storm. When the reporter asked the taxi driver in front of Coleman's, why did you take your car, pay for the gas, and go out and drive people free to go to the grocery store? He said, why wouldn't I? That, to me, capsulized how residents of St. John's and the greater St. John's area dealt with this storm. Did what you had to do to help your neighbors in need. Today, the cleanup continues, utilizing virtually every piece of equipment in the city, both private and public. We've removed tens of thousands of truckloads of snow, and our staff, supported by contractors, continue to work around the clock, and I believe they have done an incredible job so far. The economy is certainly on top of the agenda for City Council, but not just as a result of the state of emergency. In the space of a few years, economic outlook in St. John's has shifted dramatically. Less than a decade ago, St. John's was experiencing some of its highest labor participation and lowest unemployment rates and record levels of public and private investments. There is no doubt that these numbers have leveled. Impacts from climate change have shifted the economic conversation. Water cooler conversations in St. John's and across the province are weighted by concerns over public finances, concerned about for some time. The impact of negativity on our province and the impact that's having on our ability to take advantage of the many opportunities that lay before us. We all know we have a very serious fiscal challenge, and we have to deal with it now. And the residents of this province need to hear those plans from our provincial leaders to address this issue. The time for talking about it is past. We now need to take action on the serious issues fiscally that face the province. At the same time, we can't let the negativity define us. We have opportunities there that we need to take advantage of. And there's a lot of reason for hope and optimism in this province. But the very challenges we face as a city and a province provide those opportunities. We have to be ready and able to see and grasp them. I'd like to talk to you today about these opportunities. I'd like to talk to you about how we at the city see untapped potential and are actively identifying ways we can capitalize on that. Our new economic development strategy, currently in the final development stages, positions the city to be a catalyst, to mobilize business and industry and community towards collaborative approaches that lead to strategic opportunities. The Greater Halifax area, Aberdeen, Stavanger, and others are doing an excellent job of stepping up to the plate and seizing the opportunity to market themselves to the global economy. We need to do the same. Our people are recognized world-class researchers, and we have the education facilities and growth companies we need to succeed. We have significant growth potential across multiple spectrums, with exports to 50-plus countries. We need to project our story onto the global stage. As the capital city, St. John's has tremendous opportunities related to the ocean economy. For example, over 50% of Canada's ocean economy is attributed to this province. Newfoundland and Labrador currently produces 25% of Canada's conventional light crude across 4 producing offshore fields. with exploratory activity expected in the coming decade. Our post-secondary community has a lot to contribute in these areas. In fact, Memorial University is the only Canadian university to make the list of the world's top post-secondary institutions, ranked number 45 for the study of marine and ocean engineering. And the College of the North Atlantic has significant international reach, with a technical college in the state of Qatar and partner universities delivering curriculum in China. Did you know that there are 18,200 Memorial University students in St. John's? That's 16.7% of the city's population. Let me give you some sense of the university student population to the greater St. John's area. For the St. John's CMA, with 18,200 of 205,955 people, it's 8.8%. Now, we always hear of Halifax and Victoria as being university towns. In Halifax, compared to St. John's, the greater St. John's area of 8.8%, Halifax is 7.9%, and Victoria is 7.3%. In fact, Memorial University and the College of the North Atlantic are collectively the second largest community in Newfoundland and Labrador. With thousands of faculty and staff, they are a significant driver for national and international attraction, with 5,500 national and international students at Memorial and 4,000 at College North Atlantic alone. We believe this town-gown relationship is significantly underutilized, and we are looking at what we can do to strengthen this relationship to better advantage our community and our economy. Recent investments and growth in homegrown technology success stories are already beginning to get national and international attention. This October, the Memorial Center for Entrepreneurship was recognized as one of the top 5 emerging entrepreneurship centers in the world, as presented by the Global Consortium of Entrepreneurship Centers. And we at the city are very supportive of the Genesis Center, which helps build amazing companies right here in our province. Culturally, our province is changing. Today, more than 70 countries of origin are represented in the city of St. John's, a strategic advantage for growth, innovation, and change. So you may be wondering what all of this means for the city, the region, and the province. This infusion of new people with a focus on innovation and education. Like ripples in a pond, this kind of energy magnifies. Verafin's recent $515 million equity and debt recapitalization represents one of the largest ever growth financings of a Canadian software business. Breathe Suite, a local medtech company, recently raised a $550,000 round of equity financing by Venture Newfoundland and Labrador. MISA, a St. John's-based company that designed a smart energy-efficient thermostat, has been named as one of the top 20 tech startups in Canada. After spending a summer at a prestigious Silicon Valley tech accelerator, CoLab announced $2.7 million in new funding. Again, I say we need to tell our story on the global stage. Hey Orca's CEO, Joe Tejo, made a comment recently in a CBC story, and it bears repeating. You can be a company here in Newfoundland, but still have a global impact on pop culture. We always say we're a world-class software served with Newfoundland hospitality. Of course, successes in the greater St. John's area and the province are not just limited to the ocean and tech sectors. St. John's has one of the highest concentration of working artists in a Canadian city, and iconic for its art scene. Creative arts and related industries are considered a key gateway to improving the region's economic competitiveness and capacity for innovation. We have all seen, for example, the film industry expand in the last 5 to 10 years in this province. Last year, I paid particularly close interest to what many have called the Momoa effect, the impact of productions like Frontier on the local economy. Over its 3 seasons, Frontier generated $41.2 million in production expenditure and produced $63.3 million in economic output. 539 full-time equivalent jobs were created in this province alone. Businesses benefited, not just in St. John's, but across the province. Momoa returned to shoot sequences for Aquaman in Petty Harbour, a major motion picture. Hudson and Rex, which has a significant European following, is now in its second season of shooting, and more national series and films are on the horizon. We have a uniqueness and a rugged charm that is attracting cultural industries like the film industry that make our region an interesting choice for certain types of productions. Right now in St. John's, we're developing a marketing strategy that takes this and other factors into consideration. What makes a city or region unique in the minds of its residents, businesses, and investors? The workforce, students, and recruits. It's being defined every day by people, and those perceptions strongly influence place reputation and in turn future location and investment decisions. The city recognizes the need for a more strategic and consistent way to market St. John's and the region beyond borders to national and international audience. Part of that is a recognized need to improve confidence for residents and local businesses, to raise their support and continued investment while also focusing on the attraction, retention, and support of newcomers. We have a vision for St. John's as a progressive city, shaped by its geography and history, where people want to live and feel they belong. Our strategic plan identifies four main priorities: sustainability, effectiveness, a balanced transportation network, and connectivity. Part of our connection to this place is the stories that we tell. We've always been known as good storytellers, but storytelling is not exclusive to dyed-in-the-wool Newfoundlanders. It's as old as time itself and as common as breathing, a tradition held by every culture and every community, something that we can all share. We're capitalizing on the value of storytelling in our strategic and economic plans. A new series called Our City, Our Story features residents telling their own personal stories of what connects them to St. John's. And we've intentionally selected not only longtime residents, but also newcomers whose connections are less traditional but equally meaningful. Being a city where people feel connected, have a sense of belonging, and are actively engaged in community life is equally important in our long-term plans to achieving good fiscal and operational results, because it is that kind of connection that in the end defines who we are as a community and as a municipality. That's why connection to place is embedded in our economic plans and rooted in how we define ourselves as we market our towns, cities, and regions in the province. It is my strong belief that working collaboratively can be mutually beneficial for all parties. If there's one thing more than any other that I would consider a measure of my success for my tenure as mayor, it will be this: did we in St. John's encourage an atmosphere for stronger and more effective partnerships? We've had many successes in this area in the past year alone. 2018-2019, over $60 million was invested in street rehabilitation and infrastructure upgrading, thanks to joint funding from the provincial and federal governments. We've agreed to a long-term lease with the Growlers and Edge that benefits sports fans in the west end of downtown Jag Hotel, offering new entertainment opportunities to area residents. And Galway continues to grow, providing much-needed tax revenue to the city, as well as added commercial and industrial capacity. The upcoming collaboration on a Canada Games bid has the potential to bring significant benefits to the greater St. John's region. We're extremely fortunate to have this opportunity to host the 2025 Canada Summer Games and to showcase our world-class hospitality to 20,000 visitors over a 2-week period. Led by Kim Keating, Chief Operating Officer of the Cal Group, and retired Fortis Chief Financial Officer Carl Smith, our bid preparation has begun. While Canada Games is a federal government event, the hosting of the 2025 Canada Summer Games is a partnership between federal, provincial, and municipal levels of government, as well as with many private sector and corporate partners. Based on assessments from the Canadian Sports Tourism Association for the past 2 summer games, the projected economic impact for the 2-week period of the games is in the range of $80 to $110 million. In addition, in lead up and in preparation for the 2025 Canada Summer Games, there are significant pre-games, national and sport hosting opportunities that are not reflected in this figure that will add to the overall economic impact on the host committee. Just to put this into context, the Brier 2017 generated $10.1 million in total economic activity. The Canada Summer Games is like having 10 Briers in 2 weeks. You may have heard a $45 million price tag that is estimated as the gross operating cost of the Games. But that again is a gross cost and has to be offset by revenue opportunities, such as local sponsorship, ticket sales, merchandise, and in-kind sponsors. In fact, Canada's Summer Games in recent years have turned an operating profit, leaving a legacy for the community. Regarding the capital cost to prepare for a Games, upgrading venues to national standards for all sports that participate within the Games will be determined and proceed with in the next 5 years. Upgraded facilities will also be a part of the legacy of the 2025 Canada Games and will support future sports hosting and sport tourism opportunities. Sport tourism right now is a $6.8 billion industry in the Canadian economy, and it's the fastest portion of the tourism market in the country. The city benefits, as does the entire Greater St. John's region and our province. This Summer Games is going to be possible for us because of the facilities that were built in 1977, ones that the city has invested in over that time, and as well our partners, our regional partners, Paradise and Mount Pearl in particular, who've also invested in recreational facilities. So we have those in a very condensed area. You can get to any of the venues within 15 to 20 minutes, which means that the operating costs for the Games will be better as well. In reality, while some residents get caught up on who owns what and who lives where, municipal boundaries are largely ignored by many others, especially newcomers. From my perspective, when CBS lands the Pinty's Grand Slam, the Greater St. John's region benefits. And when the film industry selects Corner Brook as a film location, the province benefits. And while I know boundaries have to be important to us from a planning, policy, taxation, governance, and legislative perspective, I also know that on a national scale and in a global economy, we stand a far greater chance of success when we stand together rather than clamoring over each other for attention. We are and should promote ourselves as an important hub city. As the most easterly point in North America, St. John's is strategically located in the North Atlantic to be the country's gateway to Europe and the Arctic. St. John's International Airport currently serves 70% of all non-resident visitors who travel by air to the province. And the St. John's Harbour is a critical piece of industrial infrastructure. A naturally sheltered bit of Canada's offshore petroleum bonds, the way we market our business on a local, national, even global platform influences the way we are perceived as a destination of choice, as a source of choice for customers and potential business partners. The Greater St. John's area must together celebrate and share our successes, support an entrepreneurial spirit in the community, and participate in new exciting opportunities to diversify our economy. Only at the local level can we facilitate each other's success and magnify the potential we see in our own backyard. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. Sorry again I was so late, but I got delayed with a bit of snow, and I look forward to being back again next year. Oh, I forgot to acknowledge Councillor Sandy Hickman, who's in the back and who I just... thank you very much.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
From this day to the ending of the world, but we in it shall be remembered.
What are the chances of us gaining ashore?
We few.
Do you see the shore?
We band of brothers.
It's called biodynamic concealment. Imagine if I could make you disappear.
What's happening to my hand?
Hi, I'm Melissa Royal-Critch, host of Wednesday nights on Out of the Fog on Rogers TV. Every week we chat with political, business, and community leaders about things going on right here in our city. So tune in at 7:30 or again at 9 o'clock on Wednesdays on Out of the Fog.